At the height of sensitive political negotiations for a democratic South Africa, and Chris Hani was at the center of these efforts.
The oppressed and working people long for peace. They long for an end to violence. They long for their freedom that has long been denied.
The 10th of April 1993 started out as any other Saturday in the Hani household, but it ended in shock, grief and disbelief for millions of South Africans. Chris Hani went out to buy newspapers after giving his bodyguards the day off. As he stepped out of his car, gunman Janus Walus took aim with an evil intent. Moments later, Chris Hani was lying dead in a pool of blood, with a fatal bullet wound to the head.
That is the Chris Hani who was now becoming dangerous in this country because he's talking peace. People wanted all the time the image of chief of staff to remain on him so that he must be a man of war betrayed forever. But Chris died for peace.
The assassination shook the foundations of this nation. Shocked ANC comrades gathered at Chris Hani's home. Even ailing liberation stalwart Oliver Tambo was there.
The gravity of the assassination of Chris Hani cannot be underestimated. It is a crisis for this country, and it's a crime against the people of this country. It's a tragedy that we are going to pay very dearly for.
The news of Hani's death ignited a groundswell of anger. That a white man killed Chris Hani made it worse, flaming racial discord. There were real fears of a bloody civil war. The sensitive political negotiations were also under threat.
One was deeply concerned that on the one hand you had the fears, the anxiety of the white community, and on the other hand you had people who were concerned that this really struck a blow at the heart of African nationalism.
Nelson Mandela delivered a key speech. His words are credited with pulling the country back from the brink.
We must not let the men who worship war and who lust after blood precipitate actions that will plunge our country into another Angola. Chris Hani was a soldier. He believed in iron discipline.
I don't hear you.
But in the end, with strong leadership, the center held. Hani was sent off with a massive funeral service at the FNB Stadium. For many, his death represented the end of apartheid and the beginning of democracy. Black South Africans voted in the first democratic elections on the 27th of April. Tammy Dixon, SABC News.
Leading an organization, Chris Hani died serving as the General Secretary. I'm joined in studio by SACP's Deputy General Secretary, Solly Mapia. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good evening, Natasha, and good evening to our viewers as well.
Mr. Mapia, Chris Hani was known as a champion for social justice. So 2 decades on, is his legacy being seen in the SACP and in the country in general today?
Yes, of course. I think we're trying our best in our country as well as in the SACP. You'll notice the social programs that our government is leading. It's part and parcel of our revolution, the rolling out of houses to homeless people, electrification of the rest of the country, building of roads, massive government projects, infrastructure programs that are coming out. In the SACP itself, we have launched a series of campaigns and programs that have dealt with problems affecting the poor and the working class. We have launched campaigns on social services. We call it the Basic Services for All, or Know Your Neighborhood campaign, in briefly, where we don't necessarily wait for government, but our structures visit communities. If they found a problem of poverty and so forth, they create a mechanism amongst themselves to respond to those challenges. We have launched campaigns against corruption, for instance. We've also launched a campaign on national health insurance or national or public health and public transport. So these are broad programs that are socialist in character, which I think if Chris was still alive, he would lead them.
Okay, so you've mentioned all these programs and campaigns. Are any of your senior members involved in these? I know that senior members of the party are serving in various capacities within government. So would you say that these are upholding the values that Chris Hani saw for the SACP?
Of course, more than our members, the entire liberation movement, the comrades deployed in government by the leadership of the ANC, which represent the entire alliance component, serve that. Obviously, with different challenges facing our country as a whole, but that program continues, and in the Communist Party, we expect nothing less of our members in government to do the best to represent us well broadly and to champion the interests of the working class and the poor people.
Okay, 20 years on, and people are still looking for closure. We've heard the DA voicing today, they were asking for truth as to what happened, as to why Chris Hani was killed. Is the SACP joining these voices, or are you saying, let's let it go?
We still need the truth. This was never said at the TRC, and that's the reason why Janus Walus and W. Lewis did not get the amnesty. We think that only the truth will assist us to have a sense of closure, because our belief is that indeed there was a conspiracy to turn or to create turmoil in the country, which could not have been led by the two individuals that were arrested. So for as long as there's no truth, we won't be able to close this matter as the SACP. We want the truth still.
Okay. And finally, how best can people who want to follow in his footsteps honour the legacy that Chris Hani had and that he left with the SACP?
Firstly, is that Chris Hani was a communist revolutionary beyond just being a revolutionary, which by itself is a huge feat. The principal aim of his communist revolutionary work is to end exploitation in all its forms. Exploitation of the workers at the workplace, exploitation of the working class and the poor people, and to ensure that these people do have services. At the core of this is to end the system of capitalism, which is the system that actually creates and recreates or reproduces inequality, joblessness, and poverty in the country. It's not the democratic government, for instance, that does that. So he understood the fact that even if you will have democracy, for as long as you do not deal with or address the structural form of the system that creates inequality, you will still have massive problems that we face in our country, social challenges and so forth. So we are committed to that, hence we retain our socialist character as a communist party, and our movement broadly also commits to fight for the social justice in our country.
All right, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
That was SACP Deputy General Secretary Sali Mapai.